Mark, go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you're all about.
Mark Branch. I'm head wrestling coach at the University of Wyoming. I'm starting. I'm in my fifth year here as the head coach. I wrestled at Oklahoma State and coached there for 11 years after I was done competing, and then was the assistant head coach there for I think 6 years, and then got the head coaching opportunity here. So I've been here for, like I said, on my fifth year, and originally from Oklahoma. So spent 34 of my first years in Oklahoma, and my last four in Wyoming.
Tell me a little bit about your how you got started in wrestling, and a little bit about your wrestling experience as a youngster.
Well, I had an older brother, and to be, actually my father played college basketball at Oklahoma State, was a very good college basketball player. That's where I get my height from. So we kind of were born into a basketball family, but we had some uncles on my mother's side that wrestled in high school, and we kind of picked it up from them and started early. Obviously, it's hard to find basketball opportunities when you're 5 years old. So my brother got started, I think, when he was 5 or 6, and of course I was younger than him. So although I didn't start competing until I was probably 5 or 6, I was kind of the practice dummy right away. So when I was probably 3 years old, I was rolling around with my brother, and so it became something that I picked up really young, and it was hard to get away from. I really actually loved basketball, and I had the height for it. I had a lot of people trying to push me into basketball, being from a small town, and it was just hard to break the ties that I had with wrestling because I started so young. I remember being in junior high and thinking, man, I've invested so much time in wrestling, I can't give it up now. Back when you're young, you think that's your whole life, but I'm glad I did and stuck with it, and was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to go to Oklahoma State, and prove myself, and wasn't really recruited too much there. I think at one time Coach Smith told me he brought me in as a workout partner. He was kind of honest to me and said, I wasn't expecting you to succeed here at the level that you succeeded, so it kind of put him in a bind in recruiting. But that was a good bind that he was glad to have, and obviously I went from being a workout partner to establish myself as a starter, and then win a couple of national championships there, and a couple of runner-up finishes, and had an outstanding experience there around a lot of wonderful coaches. I mean, Kenny Monday, John Smith, Pat Smith, and workout partners that were national champions, Olympians, Olympic champions. Kendall Cross was one of my coaches, and Kenny and John both being gold medalists. So it's very rare to get that kind of exposure. And, obviously I think it had everything to do with me being successful as a college wrestler.
Okay. You mentioned you talked a little bit about some of your college, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But describe a couple memorable moments for you as a youth wrestler in like AAU high school, and then secondly, any role models that you looked up to growing up.
Well, obviously, I can think of a career-changing moment. I was probably, as a freshman and a sophomore in high school, I was close to 6 foot tall, and I was wrestling 108 pounds, and then 115 pounds, and then my sophomore year I was wrestling 130 pounds, and really didn't carry around, obviously, very much fat, and struggled with weight cutting, and one of my life-changing and career-changing moments was my sophomore year at our high school regional tournament. I was undefeated in our class, and I was a favorite to place pretty high at state, and my mindset was I was challenging, I was expecting to challenge to win a state championship my sophomore year, and went to the regional tournament, and I didn't make weight, and I ended up having to go up a weight and qualified for state, and went to state, and I think I went 2-2 or something, and didn't place, and I really contemplated quitting wrestling after that. I didn't like cutting weight, which, you know, it was just hard for me because of my build. I struggled with losing anything. And so that summer I really thought about quitting, but I decided to, you know, instead of quitting, to just let myself grow and wrestle where I was naturally. And my junior and senior year, I ended up going undefeated both those years, and actually didn't give up a takedown my last 2 years of high school. And so I had a dominant last 2 years to my high school career, which really changed the love of the sport. And I found a love for it that I'd never had. Obviously, winning's always fun. But anyway, it was one of those experiences. It was one of the hardest things for me. I felt like I let down my coach, my program, my teammates. And I vowed that I would never do that again. And from that point on, I became a different wrestler. And that experience carried me through college. So as far as role models, you know, my father was always a role model. He was really instrumental in helping me get through my college experience. Him being a college athlete, he gave me a lot of advice, and I called him a lot when I was struggling with certain things, and he really helped me keep my head in the game. And he was never, you'd think being a former college athlete, he'd be real abrasive and be in my face, but he never claimed to know a whole lot about wrestling, and he never got in my face about a lot of things. He stayed back, and he was there when I needed him. And then obviously my older brother was, you know, I wouldn't have been successful without the beatings that I had from him. So that was something that having an older brother certainly helped toughen me up, and he was definitely a role model to me as well.
I was watching this video on from 1994 when you had a losing record and you ended up winning a national title. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about your college wrestling, and then touch a little bit on maybe your frame of mind at that. And I know it's been a long time, but just touch on that as a freshman, and some of the things that were going through your mind at that time when you were going for your first national title.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I struggled a lot early on, and that's an experience I try to use as a coach. Is it took me a while to develop a style and a comfort, and I went from being, like I said, very dominant my last couple of years in high school to going into a wrestling room with national champions and Olympians, and just really getting throttled and trying to deal with that, and then trying to figure out how I can compete at that level, and trying to find something that felt right to me. And it took me a while. I don't think it was a lack of hard work. It was just a lack of understanding college wrestling. And so, you know, it took me a little bit of a while, and I developed a few things. I struggled with my height, with my defense, keeping guys off my legs. So I developed kind of a lower stance where I wrestled a lot from one knee. I developed some leg riding series that I used, and some cradles that I used that where I could become a factor on top. And so those things took time to really put into place. And then the biggest thing was just gaining confidence. And I tell my guys, you're not going to get confidence from wins, because it's hard to win without confidence. So you got to develop your confidence in other ways. You got to develop confidence in your training. You got to develop confidence in trying to get something out of every match, win or lose. I'm trying to take something away and become a better wrestler. So that's something that I had to deal with, and that confidence was hard to find. And going into my freshman season, I went into the NCAA tournament with a losing record, unseeded, unranked. But the strangest thing, and the thing I always tell people, is I felt walking into that tournament that I was as good as anybody in that tournament. Now, I didn't sit there and say, I'm going to win this tournament, or I'm going to be a national champion, or anything like that. And I didn't even walk into the tournament saying I'm going to be an All-American. I did walk into the tournament knowing I could beat anybody, and knowing that I was as good as everybody in that weight. So I felt like, you know, I was ready and prepared to go in and wrestle. And I tell everybody all the time, I actually looked at it as, I don't have to wrestle Kenny Monday this week. I don't have to wrestle Pat Smith this week. I'm going to the national tournament, and it's going to be easier than my everyday practice. And it really got me excited about the national tournament. I went in there, and I got a major decision, my first match against the number 2 seed, and really from that point, you talk about getting confidence. As soon as that match was over, I felt like I could beat anybody in the world, and I really did. I mean, I wasn't satisfied with it. I was excited to get to the next match, and all the way through the finals. You know, even getting into the finals or becoming an All-American, I didn't sit there and go, man, that's quite an accomplishment. I remember looking forward to the next match. As soon as I won, I was looking forward to the next match and excited to win it, because I knew that there was an opportunity in front of me to do something special, and it was special, and it was something that I really cherish now.
Now, tell me a little bit about, in general, and maybe even give a couple of examples. Tell me a little bit about some of the coaches and the friendships that you developed at the college level, and then a little bit about how wrestling had kind of helped prepare you for the future on and off the mat. And I think you touched on a memorable moment. If you have another one, go ahead.
Well, I tell my guys, they walk into practice, it seems like some days, and they're dreading it, and they don't understand how special this moment is in their life. And that 5 years I had at Oklahoma State was just unbelievable, and I'm still great friends with a lot of guys that I wrestled with, and I stay in touch with them to this day. And we share things. That's what I tell our guys, is it's a brotherhood. I mean, you share things that you'll never share with another person. And so those friendships will never die. And you know, obviously Coach Smith was a big force in my life, and him giving me the opportunity to stick around and coach. You know, I never would have dreamed I would have coached at the college level. It's something that you know, at the end of my career, he said, "Hey, I'd like you to stay around and help out if you want to." And it was just a great opportunity for me, and it's really changed the path of my life, obviously, because I've been involved in college wrestling now for 16 years, you know, post graduation. So it's just been phenomenal, and the relationships I've developed as a coach have probably been even better, because the kids that I have mentored and coached and become a part of their lives and helped in their successes, those are the memories that really are the reason why I'm in coaching right now, and that's why, you know, I love coaching, is because they're better than my memories. I mean, winning national championships as a team, winning national championships as an individual, I've done it all, and it's great. But seeing, you know, sometimes it's one win in a duel that maybe didn't even matter. Seeing a kid experience that joy and that excitement, and seeing him understand wrestling for the first time, you just can't get enough of it as a coach. So it's just been, you know, those relationships will bond us forever, and that's why the sport of wrestling is just, you know, it's an unbelievable, it's one of a kind sport.
Now, did you do any international wrestling, or did you go directly into coaching? Is that?
No, I wrestled in the U.S. Open a couple times and placed in freestyle. I never trained really. I never wrestled freestyle until I got in college. And I only wrestled a tournament or two during college, but I did my couple years after I graduated. I gave it a little bit of a shot, but I never really got into it. I always felt like I didn't understand it enough. I hadn't practiced it enough. I was going to graduate school, got married, and was having a family, and it was something that, you know, I just didn't feel like my heart was into giving everything I had. I mean, I think I was mature enough to understand that if I want a shot at being the best, I got to put my life on hold, and I got to give everything to wrestling, and I wasn't willing to do that. At that point, I was, like I said, I was focused on coaching. I was focused on my graduate school. I was focused on my family, and there definitely were times throughout my life that I thought, man, I wish I would have maybe gave it a go. But I've never sat back and felt regretful. I thought, man, you know, if I would have maybe invested a little bit more time, maybe I could have been, you know, a great international wrestler. But who knows? And I'll never know. And I'm okay with that, because I don't have any regrets. I know that if I would have took that path, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. So that obviously makes what I'm doing now work.
tell me a little bit about the transition from a wrestler to a coach, and also give me a little bit of an overview on, give me some similarities and differences as being a coach versus a wrestler and a participant, and then also an overview of your team this year.
Okay. The biggest difference is, I think, as an athlete, as a wrestler, you got to be somewhat self-centered. You got to be a little bit selfish. You got to take care of yourself a lot. And you got to worry about what you're doing. Whereas a coach is completely opposite. I mean, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with your guys, your team. So you really have to be selfless. You have to be selfless with your time, with your emotions, with everything. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest difference in the transition, is learning that your time's their time now. And I see a lot of young coaches get into coaching, and they have a hard time getting away from that selfish aspect. They don't want to, and I remember going through that, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. You know, they get into this coaching this freshman who's got a 500 record, and they're a national champion. They're like, come on, I don't have time for you. And that attitude doesn't work in coaching. You got to have time for everybody. You got to have time for your superstars. You got to have time for your guy that's maybe third or fourth string. So you got to be very selfless, and you got to put your pride to the side. So it's that's the biggest thing, I think, from moving from an athlete to a coach. Our team this year is it's I tell you what, it's already changed a bunch. I mean, with injuries, with some ineligibilities. It's a young team, but it's a team that's not complete yet. And I've kind of always felt that way. I've always felt like as the season goes, we change as a team. And I think the one thing we've done well is we're a better team at the end than we are at the beginning. And so, that's our goal with this year's team, is just to keep developing them, keep molding them, getting better every day. And our team comes together. And the thing is early in the year, it never feels like a team. Because you have guys that are fighting and clawing for spots. And at some point that second semester, you kind of set your 10 starters. You put more of your focus into them, but that team concept starts to develop amongst them. And they start really coming together and molding well. And you got to get that right combination. And sometimes you can have 9 guys that are I'm not talking about competition-wise. I'm talking about 9 guys that are really on the same page, and you have one guy that's out there on his own, and your team dynamics are going to stink. So, the key is to getting all 10 guys on the same page and really pushing the team concept, getting these guys to believe in each other and getting these guys to wrestle for each other. So that's what we're in the stage of doing, getting those 10 guys figured out and starting to develop that teammanship. And we got a young team, and we've had some guys establish themselves. We've had Andy McCauley's really established himself this year as a sophomore at 157 pounds, and he had a great tournament out in Vegas, finishing third. Had a great tournament out in Reno, finishing second, and pushed himself into the rankings. I think he's ranked in the top 10 or 12 in most polls, and he's really that's what we need. We need some guy to come out of nowhere. He wasn't even our starter at the beginning of the year, so we need more of that. We need guys coming out of the woodworks and really bursting onto the scene, and that doesn't happen by chance. Andy's done a lot of work to get there. We've got returning All-American Alfonso Hernandez at 197 pounds, who's just a great team leader, a great person, just an outstanding student athlete. He's a pre-med who just got a 4.0. And is going to have his choice of medical school to attend next year, and he's.
Okay, tell me a little bit about how this Black Hills State or this South Dakota State University of Wyoming duel is going to be held at Black Hills State. Just touch on that a little bit, how that got started, and.
Well, Frank Pavich, who officiated several of our matches, he's asked us for a couple of years if we would like to do something up there. We have, ever since I've been here, we've gone off campus and we've wrestled around the state of Wyoming, and we've wrestled up in Casper and Cheyenne, and we, our athletic departments come to us and ask us to do that every year. And so, with Chris Bono getting the job at South Dakota State, I'd asked them the previous couple of years, and I don't think they were real interested. But I asked Chris. I said, hey, let's do this, and it'll save us both some travel, and it'll be good to get out there and showcase our programs to different parts of the state, because Wyoming, it's hard to drive in Wyoming, especially in the winter. And it's hard for people to come from Gillette, or people to come from, Powell or Cody or Rock Springs. And it's hard for those people to travel to our matches, but they follow our program. So we want to put our program in front of them. And so it's something that we're going to do a 2-year deal. We're going to wrestle wrestle up there in Spearfish this year, and then next year we're going to turn around and wrestle that same duel in Gillette. And so we'll get 2 years where both of us don't have to travel as far, and we get to put our programs out there in front of a different fan and really help grow our programs. And you know what? I mean, I want South Dakota State to be successful. Obviously, I want to be better than them, and that's our goal, to be better than everybody in our conference. But I do want them to have a good program, and I want them to grow that program and be a strong program. And so I think it's something that's going to help both of our programs. And it sounds like it's going to be a great event. I think we're going to have a great attendance. And like I said, we're going to get to see fans who normally wouldn't get to see us. So we're excited about it. And I think we want to pack that gym and sell that thing out and just have an outstanding contest.
Okay. Now, there's actually two last things. One is anything you'd like to say to the parents, the wrestlers, even the fans, or those that that'll be attending this. And then two, if you could take, what are a couple of things that you can take out of wrestling that you've learned, 2 valuable skills out of wrestling that you learned that you use in your everyday life?
Well, and to me, wrestling is about accountability. It's about responsibility, and it's about ownership. You have to take ownership for what you do. If I got guys that aren't, they're cutting corners and they're not doing the right things, then they're going to have to live with the consequences, and nobody's going to bail them out. And that's the great thing about wrestling, is you can't hand the ball off, and you can't pass it, and you can't point fingers. You step out there, and it's mano a mano, and you really have to take responsibility for your performance. Something about the parents and the wrestlers, I want kids to understand that our kids are not just wrestlers. I mean, they're student athletes, and the student comes first. And in wrestling, you've got to get your college degree. And we struggle with academic issues, and we probably always will. And I'm extremely proud of my squad right now. We had the best semester we've ever had since I've been here. And we didn't have one kid out of 30 guys on our roster. We didn't have one F this entire semester, and that's the first time ever. So we didn't fail one class as a team, and I'm excited about that. And we just had some outstanding academic performances, and to me, that makes me feel like we're doing a good job, because they need to understand how important their academics are. And same thing with these high school kids. If they want a chance to wrestle at college, they need to take their academics seriously. Most of our kids are on some sort of academic aid, because wrestling scholarships are few and far between. They're very limited. So we have a lot of kids that supplement their athletic scholarship with academic scholarships, and so we've had to quit recruiting quite a few kids, because they're not in good enough academic standing to be a part of our program, and we've had to cut ties with them, and that's too bad. But we run a program that we expect our kids to be outstanding student athletes and outstanding representatives for our program in the state of Wyoming, and we want that to show on the mat, and I think it will show. And our fans that get to come out and watch us at Black Hills, they're going to see a program that they can be proud of, and our kids represent us well, and we demand